So the other day, I witnessed the most flagrant and just blatant instance of disrespect and just insensitivity that I'd ever seen in person. I know I've seen disgusting stuff on the internet, and I've heard stories of people doing really mean things to one another, but as for real life, witnessing something firsthand, this was the most messed up and just mean-spirited thing I'd ever witnessed. And it really led me to think about a lot of stuff afterward. But I guess a little bit of context is I had a job interview on Friday. For those of you who are curious about that, since I mentioned it just about 5 seconds ago, it went well. Thank you for asking. But anyway, that's not the point of it. The point is I was in St. Louis for this job interview, and when I say St. Louis, don't get the picture of what the media would have you believe what St. Louis is, which is just a horrible cesspool of danger and murder and rape and awful things. That's merely East St. Louis. That's the scary part. This is actually a very affluent, nice area that I was in. And so I was in that area. I went to the mall, met up with my dad, and got some clothes. And it was an incredibly fast shopping trip. And I wouldn't have even taken it unless it was 100% necessary that I get clothes for the interview. Since, no matter how much I hate shopping, I just couldn't justify going into the interview in my, Simpsons pajama pants and my South Park sleeping t-shirt or whatever. So I had to go get a suit and whatnot. So I went and got my stuff, had lunch with my dad, and then headed out to the interview. And as with every place I've ever tried to get that's not one of my go-to locations in everyday life, I get lost because I suck at directions. I'm spatially challenged and directionally retarded. I just don't get it. I don't understand why it takes me so much effort to consciously think about directions, but it really does. So I get lost, and it wasn't a really bad loss, wasn't too awful, but I get myself turned back around in the right direction. I pull into the left lane to turn back onto the main road, and I have to say, to get this across there, that this light was the most horrible, awful light I've ever sat at. It probably took 3 or 4 minutes for that to turn green, and I pulled up to it when it was red, so it wasn't like it had just turned red. So, maybe you could say that complaining about a light that lasts for 3 to 4 minutes while sitting in an air-conditioned car in a new suit in a first-world affluent country is kind of a first-world menial concern, but I'm going to bitch about it anyway, because I'm mad about it, 3 minutes is too long. But, so I'm sitting there, and to my left, going uphill, a slight uphill, because if you can kind of get this picture in your head, I was turning left onto the road, and I was facing downhill, kind of like a downish incline, and the homeless guy was walking to my left in the opposite direction I was going. And so I looked to the left, and I see this homeless guy, and it was only about 10 or 15 steps that I saw at first that I saw his face and his front, and then he passed me and I saw his back. But what I did see when I looked at him is he was clearly, disheveled, just disgusting, just an awful, awful situation. He looked to be about, I really can't even guess, anywhere between 40 and 50 years old, honestly, but when it's a homeless person, you really can't tell because they just get so much more age per day, so to speak, out on the streets as opposed to living in a comfortable lifestyle like most of us are accustomed to here in this nation. So he was walking and he had this really old, holy, just ratty piece of shit, looked like it smelled like a dead monkey's butthole, just a bluish cap on his head, like a stocking cap, and under it his hair was all matted and oily, and it looked like it was just crammed under there, not even with care or layered, just tucked under there haphazardly, not even caring. And I could see on his face that he really, really wrinkled, it seemed disproportionately wrinkled for how old he appeared to be, which is obviously another side effect of being homeless. And his face was really just kind of sporadic, if that makes sense. He was moving his mouth around a lot. It didn't look like he was talking because there was no one around him to talk to. And also because his mouth movements just didn't look like a normal person talking, if that makes sense. Even if you can't hear someone, you can tell by the way their lips are moving if they're speaking English or, not. You can tell. And he was clearly just mumbling, it appeared. And so he's walking, and as he's walking, his hand is all contorted and messed up, and it's swinging up to his glasses in front of him, and he touches his glasses with his hand, and then it would swing back on every other step, and it would look as though he was trying to reach in the air as high as he could behind his back. So it was really a twitchy, odd, awkward movement that he was making. And in addition to that, the other awkward movement that was really patently apparent was his left foot was pointed in towards the center of his body, so he was kind of awkwardly limping. But what's important to mention is that these issues, they didn't appear to be like an actual physical problem. He didn't look like he had been, mortally wounded or something like that. He looked as though this was an issue where it was a neurological problem problem where he just wasn't capable of properly using his limbs for some sort of brain problem. I don't know. I'm no doctor. But I did think, and I'm still pretty certain, that he has schizophrenia. I'm not an expert. I don't know because I'm not a doctor. But I do know that catatonic schizophrenics tend to have arm movements like that, and undifferentiated schizophrenics tend to have that kind of mouth movement and babbling in conjunction with catatonic movements like that. And so I figured that's probably the diagnosis, but hey, who the hell knows? I'm not Dr. House. But anyway, he was walking and kind of really, really slowly, honestly, like kind of a pitiful walk, moving his mouth the whole time. And after about 30 or 40 seconds, he's about, I guess, 40 feet up the street now. These kids walk around the corner, and there's probably about, 6, 7, 8 of them, about the age of 14 or 15, a few guys and a few girls, and all the guys are carrying these brown paper bags full of what I assume to be, a bread company or Panera Bread or some sort of cafe food, like where you'd go get a baguette and soup and salad and bring it home or whatnot for a catering or something like that. So they had a bunch of these bags, and they're walking up the hill, catching up to this guy, the homeless guy, and I see kind of who appeared to be the alpha male of the group reach into one of the bags and take out a sourdough roll. And at first I thought, I'm like, oh, this dude's going to hit this guy up with a sourdough roll. Good for him. That's awesome. But about half a second later, I watched the kid just wind up and just pitch this ball of bread just right at the back of this guy's head. And fortunately, it didn't hit him in the back of the head, even though it wouldn't have really done any damage. It was a light roll, but it hit him in the back, kind of the lower back, and then it fell down, Jesus Christ. It fell down, hit the concrete, and because it was on a decline, it proceeded to roll back down towards the person who threw it. And as he got hit, the homeless guy turned around real quick, and at first he stutter-stepped towards it, almost like he wanted the food, which he clearly did, but he was afraid of getting hurt, like he'd been hurt before for trying to get food, which you should know, people with schizophrenia are actually way more likely than the average person to be the victim of violence just because they can't protect themselves. They're very rarely the person who's going on crazy killing sprees like movies would have you believe. But anyway, so this rolls back down to this kid, and the kid stops it, and instead of picking it up and putting it back in the bag or giving it to the guy and saying, oh yeah, that was just a joke, he stops it under his foot and he kicks it into the middle of the road. Just kicks it into the middle of the road. Perfectly good food that homeless guy could have eaten. Kicks it into the middle of the road because he doesn't give a shit about it. And what do all the girls and all the guys around him do? Do they look at him like a scumbag and say, oh, you dickwad? No, they started cheering and laughing and just, cavorting and cackling at their hilarity and just how funny it was that these little entitled rich bitches living in this affluent area, had every benefit in life while this guy was struggling to make ends meet, hell, struggling to even survive, it appeared. And it struck me as just the most awful just thing to do to someone. It was just fucked up. And the only kind of minimal happiness that I got out of this situation was that after that, as they kept walking up towards the homeless guy, because obviously they were walking the same direction, they had to pass him, the homeless guy, instead of turning around and continuing on his way, kind of stopped and waited for them there, like half on the sidewalk and half on the grass. And when they got up close to him, kind of like the second alpha male looking guy, he stepped up to the homeless guy and did that stomping maneuver where it's kind of like a stutter step where you kind of like try and startle someone. And instead of the homeless guy getting startled, as soon as the kid did that, the homeless guy just freaking burst out in the most maniac, just hysterical, ridiculous, cackling laugh I'd ever heard. Like, it was honestly really, really scary. Like, I had the window rolled down, I'll grant you that, but I could hear this laugh from my car as if he were like talking to me almost. Like, it was that shrieking and loud and just awful sounding. It was terrible. And it made me happy to see those kids get kind of scared by it. But at the same time, when I looked at that guy while he was laughing like that, I just realized that he was totally and completely just out of his mind. Like, that's just another telltale sign of certain types of schizophrenia, is you can't express emotion correctly. It's called inappropriate affect, where even if you're angry or furious like that guy was, you will laugh uncontrollably, or you can't express emotion at all, or all this to say, it's a really messed up disorder. And it just pissed me off to see all these people, not all these people, I guess these 6 or 7 individuals ganging up on this guy and just kind of being a dickbag to him. So I don't know. Well, tell me what you guys think about that. I thought it was an interesting story, so I'd share it. But as far as garnering some moral value from it, I think that should be not stealing food from homeless people. It's a good one. Love you.